Howdy, guys, and welcome to Survivor Season 41 and a recap of Episode 2. And welcome to Cliff Notes from outside, off the island itself. Or maybe I'm hiding out on the island somewhere. I wish. Welcome to Cliff Notes, where we talk about Survivor. I'm so excited to be covering this season. Now, last week, what a grand start. We had a 2-hour episode. We also lost two castmates, two castaways out of the beginning 18. That makes it easy to get it down to 26 days as we're going to have this season, right? So we lost two castaways last week. Just as a refresher, the two castaways we lost Abraham from the Yase tribe, and we lost Sarah from the Uwa tribe. And it's interesting because two different strategies from these two tribes. Uwa, in getting rid of Sarah, was trying to get rid of someone that I think they felt wasn't necessarily the strongest competitor in terms of the actual challenges themselves. So from that tribe, we saw him get rid of the weaker person. Not that Sarah was weak, but you know what I mean. But from the other tribe, from Yase, we lost Abraham, who was a strong competitor in terms of the challenges. But for them, it became more of a social game and alliances and loyalty. So two different strategies. We'll see how those play out going forward. So we've got that. Now, just as a refresher, because we're all still trying to remember the names, just keep this in mind. The blue tribe is called Luvu. The yellow tribe is called Yase, and the green tribe is called Uwa. I can kind of pronounce those. Can't always do that every season, but those are the three tribes we've got. All right, so with that being said, let's talk about what we saw happening this week on the island and with the three tribes. So let's start by looking at the aftermath of the Uwa tribe, who, remember, they lost Sarah, but it was a very contentious tribal council. We saw a lot of whispering back and forth, JD and Ricard, just a lot of discussions back and forth. Eventually, we lost Sarah, but we also had one vote that was cast to send Brad out the door. Now, Brad's our rancher from Wyoming, I think. And so we've got Brad having a vote cast against him. That's got to make you nervous in the very first tribal council if you have a vote cast against you. Now, if I remember, Sarah's the one who cast the vote. Well, she's already gone, but it doesn't matter. You still know that you could be a target based on that. And so as a result, we see Brad a little bit nervous as we start off this episode. He saw the vote cast against him, and now he's really nervous, and he is especially mistrustful of JD and Ricard. Ricard was gunning for Brad. It's justifiable being nervous about him. I really thought last week that JD and Brad were going to be a little bit tighter, but things fell apart. So now Brad doesn't trust either one of them, but he sees them going off into the jungle. And here's an interesting thought. He says, you don't need two people to go off together to get water. And he's right. And it just shows in the game of Survivor, much like Big Brother, there's always someone watching. There's always someone paying attention. If you wander off with someone else, there's going to be people suspicious about, are you just going off to do a task, or are you doing a little chit-chatting as you go along? Well, Brad's like that. He's already nervous. He sees two of the guys who he thinks are potential enemies against him going off to get water. He comes up with an interesting idea. He wants to play an old Tony Valache strategy of trying to hide at the meeting spot and see if he can overhear people. So Brad takes off running full speed down the beach. He gets to the watering hole before these guys make it. I guess they take some path through the jungle itself. He hides. He listens. Eavesdropping the two. And we got eavesdropping going on in Big Brother and Survivor, everywhere where we got reality shows, right? He's eavesdropping on them, and he hears them talking a little bit about how they don't feel like they can really trust Brad, but they're feeling better about the tribe today than they were right after tribal council when they sent out Sarah. So good information. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he hears that they don't trust him, but I think he probably suspected that already. But here's the problem with Brad and his eavesdropping. It's not the eavesdropping. It's the fact that he did it out in the open. He took off running, and he later tells Shant just what he did. And she has a little comment where she says, look, if he did it to them, he could do it to me as well. You've got to be careful. These castaways that are playing the game so fast and so hard. Yes, I understand it's only 26 days. Everything is more accelerated than any other reality show, it seems like. But when you're starting to play a little too aggressively or a little too hard, people notice. And Shant's noticed, and now she's a little bit nervous about Brad as well. So he got some good information, but at what price? Just creating a lot more distrust of him. And the worst part, it's not just that Shant saw it, But she immediately told Ricard. Ricard already had a target on Brad. Well, now he absolutely has a target. And if I was any one of those, this first part of Survivor, when there's only 6 people on a tribe, there's only 5 at this point because they already got rid of Sarah. I'd be doing everything I could to find one person on that tribe that I could villainize and get everyone else to gang up against. And now Ricard and Shant have that person. They can talk about how sneaky Brad is and hopefully protect themselves next time they have to go to a tribal council. So Brad's in a little bit of a hurting situation right now. While that's happening over at Yase, what do we have happening over at Luvu, the blue tribe? Well, we've got Deshawn trying to start a fire. And he talks about how he does it all the time, but it's a little bit harder out in the real world in the island as opposed to back home where if you can't start the fire, you can just go inside and turn on the heater instead. But out on the island, he's having some issues with it, getting a little frustrated. And Nasir comes over and says, nah, I can do it. We get a quick little video montage talking about him growing up in very rough, very primitive conditions. Nasir took some of the wisdom and knowledge he had of growing up, and he gets the spark started, the fire started immediately. I like Nasir. I said that last week. I'm going to say it again. I like him. The other castaways are starting to take a shine to him as well. They've noticed that he started the fire. They're starting to like him. They're starting to really recognize the value he may bring to this tribe. So props to Nasir. And over at Yase, we've got the castaways desperately looking for food, seafood in particular. Now remember, this year they don't even get rice. They get nothing from Jeff. Nothing, a pot and a machete, but no actual food itself. So it shows them chasing down crabs, trying to cook some crabs up and everything. And we're on day 3 or 4. I guess that's enough time for them to really start getting hungry. But I hope they catch a lot of seafood because by day 20, 21, they're really going to be hungry by then, right? But they're off looking a little for some seafood. Everyone is except for 2 people. Xander and Liana, for whatever reason, are still back at camp working. And all of a sudden they look up and they realize that they're the only people that aren't off looking for seafood or looking for whatever else they may be looking for. They recognize that they're all alone. They decide they're going to go look for everyone else. And I think there's a little mention about, what are they up to? Let's go check it out. Let's maybe spy. Let's go check out some of these people. Well, they kind of get in their heads that, hey, if they're doing it, why can't we do it as well? So rather than really actively looking for the rest of their tribe mates, they start looking for idols instead to see what they can find. And Xander finds the advantage. He finds the one, it looks like the same one that we saw Jeff Probst hit in episode 1. Now, we didn't know what the advantage was at that time. Now we know, because here's the deal. When you take this advantage, before you know what it is, you have to either decide to take it or not. If you take it, you get an advantage, but you also get a punishment. And you don't know until you've made the decision. Ooh, I kind of like that. I think that's cool. And of course, Xander takes it. Who's not going to take it at this stage in the game, right? Even knowing there's a punishment, you take advantage of the advantages when you find them. So he discovers a 3-way immunity idol. Well, it's a cool twist. Now think of it. It takes a little bit to understand, but he finds a 3-way immunity idol, which means that he will have immunity, but only when the other 2 idols or advantages are found on the other 2 tribes. So there's 3 of these little letters hidden, one on each tribal location. Once each of them is found, then each of the 3 people who has one of those pieces now has an immunity idol, basically. So a huge power, but you got to get some other people to find it as well. Otherwise, it has no power at all. Now, how do you know the other people have found their idols? You've got these little silly sayings that you have to say when everyone comes together for the challenges, for the competitions. And Xander's is something along the lines of watching purple butterflies fly, something like that. He has to say that. If he says that, and then the people at the other camps who found the other advantages have their own little silly sayings, that's their code words to know that each other's discovered it. And again, once all 3 have been found, they all 3 have immunity. So that's the advantage. The disadvantage is that until the other 2 are found, until all 3 are found, Xander doesn't get any vote, none whatsoever. Now we're already down to 5 members on this tribe, so it only takes 3 to boot someone out. Xander not having a vote, that represents, 20% of the votes in that tribe that aren't going to be cast. So it's a huge, huge disadvantage as well. So it is certainly to his benefit that these other idols be found as quickly as possible, because he can't vote until it happens. Now I thought about it. Here's an interesting strategy. Could you, assume you found one of those three advantages, could you potentially not say your phrase at the immunity challenge so that the other two people who had already found advantages weren't allowed to convert those into immunity idols? Could you keep quiet just to keep those two people from not having a vote and maybe change some things happening up at other tribes? It's a possibility, but the other part of it is, as long as that happens, you don't get a vote either. And I would think in most cases, it's probably more important that you get your vote back and your own idol, as opposed to trying to really screw up someone else's voting and all that, unless there's enough communication between these tribes. And we haven't seen yet whether that'll be the case or not. I could see people working out some kind of strategy if they get to hang out enough where maybe you take advantage of this situation. We'll see. We got a long ways to go on that. All right. Xander's found the advantage. And remember, he already won the extra vote last week because he risked his vote. So he's sitting pretty high and pretty, right? Well, you would think so, but he makes one little mistake. He tells his two tightest teammates on his tribe, which happened to be Evie, and Voce, David Voce. He tells both of them that he's got this advantage. He also tells them that he won the extra vote from last week. Here's the thing. Yes, you would think when you have such extra power, it may help grab some people on your tribe, bring them in a little bit tighter and help you out in hopes that you'll support them as well. You also run the risk that with all those extra powers, they are going to see you as an extra big threat to get sent out, and another way to maybe villainize another person and send them out the door. And so Xander has told these two, I think it's so early in the game to be trusting anyone in your tribe with so much information, because you really don't know how people are going to play the game just yet. And of course, it hits them hard, because as soon as he tells Evie and Voce, Evie immediately goes over and tells Tiffany and Liani exactly what's going on, that he's got all these advantages in the extra vote. And it's really looking like we're getting ready to see a woman's alliance forming on the Yase tribe. Not good for Xander. It's amazing. You start off feeling like you're on top of the world, and within just 30 minutes, you go to the very bottom. All right, so with all that being said, little interactions with the tribes, but now they're all coming together for the immunity challenge. And they get there, and sure enough, Xander gives out his little, I'm so hungry, I thought I saw purple butterflies flying. And everyone looks at him like he's like he hadn't had enough to eat and maybe needs to go take a big old drink of water. But he doesn't get the other responses back. So right now he's the only one. He's not going to have a vote for this tribal council if they go to tribal council. So the immunity challenge itself, another great survivor. I love the survivor challenges. They're so big, so complex. And this one, you've got castaways who have to swim out, grab a key from underwater, one person from each tribe, grab a key that's anchored to a chain underwater, swim back. Once they do that, then we've got the rest of the castaways who all can run across some obstacles, some nets that are in the water. Eventually, you get to a balance beam that you've got to cross. If you don't make it, you've got to go back, start the balance beam over again, and it's important. We're going to talk about that. But you do all of that, and then finally, once everyone's made it across all the obstacles, then the last two people on each tribe solve a puzzle in order to win immunity for the week. Now, last week, we only had one tribe that was safe from tribal council. The two second and third place teams both had to send someone to tribal. Not this week. The top two teams are going to be safe. They're also going to win some fishing gear, which, as we talked about before, everyone's a little hungry. That's going to come in especially handy this year. But the last place team's going to go to tribal council, so we're going to lose one castaway on this particular episode. So we start off, we see the poor Yase tribe. The Yase tribe lost last week. They couldn't find their paddle within the first 5 minutes of the episode starting. They had to send someone home. They've just not had an easy time of it again. And once again, they're having problems in this challenge. In this challenge, it all kind of falls on Tiffany. Tiffany just can't make it across the balance beam. And we see some different strategies. We see some people running across the beam. We see some people that are kind of gripping it, scooting over. And you would think even if it takes longer, Tiffany probably could have done that, but she's just having issues. And it's hard. You got to figure this thing's floating out in the water, so it's moving back and forth. It's slippery because all the shoes are wet and all of that. So I know it'd be hard, but Tiffany seems to especially have a hard time with it. And she really puts a Yase tribe behind the 8 ball as a result. They're still trying to get across, I think, when we get the other 2 teams. And as it turns out, Luvu, the blue team, who they've been winning a lot of challenges. I think they won a challenge last week. They look like a really strong team. Also, keep this in mind. If I recall, I think Luvu is the oldest team in the tribe. I don't think they have anyone on that tribe that's under the age of 25. So, just saying. Yeah, just keep that in mind for you future Survivor players. Sometimes the young age isn't always the what works best for you. You know, just saying. But anyway, Luvu wins again. They were quick in the water. They were quick on the puzzle. They did a fantastic job. They've gotten immunity. Uav, the green tribe, has also gotten immunity. Yase, not so much. Once again, they come in last place. And so now they've got a big issue. Do they get rid of it? And it really, again, coming down to strategies. Do they get rid of the competitive liability of Tiffany, who couldn't make it across that beam and really cost them immunity this week? So do they get at the person who's kind of the weakest in the challenges? Or do they get rid of Xander with all these powers and advantages that he has because they represent such a big threat later in the game? We're going to see. There's a lot of going back and forth because of that. But first, we've got another little twist that Jeff announces. And he says, look, before y'all go back, the team that Luvu, since y'all won, y'all have to pick someone from the losing tribe, Yase, and they're going to go on a little journey. And they'll find out more once they take off on this journey. So they end up picking Evie to go on this trip. And then they have to pick another player, either from their tribe or the second place tribe, to also go on a journey, which is interesting because you're talking about mixing people from different tribes. That gives people a chance to have some discussions, have some talks, which is always a little bit dangerous, I would think. You never know just what's going to be said or not said, or completely have things made up. But they have to pick another person, and Deshaun quickly volunteers. He's from Luvu. He's the winning tribe. He said, I'd love to do it. I'll go with Evie to do this journey. So they both take off in a boat, and it really seems like Evie is happy to be building some bonds with another tribe, another player. And I think she mentions at one point that there's a chance that Tiffany is going to get sent home suddenly now. That's going to make it more difficult in terms of women and advantages and all of that. She wants to start building some bonds. And even beyond that, she says, we're not doing very good. We're going to continue to lose people. I better have some bonds outside my tribe to protect me, because when it comes to merger, we're probably going to be down in the numbers. And she's probably right. So she's excited to be bonding a little bit with Deshaun, and they end up getting to the island. They have to go up the same mountain that we saw in episode 1. And once they get to the top, they're faced with a similar decision to make. And they're assuming it's probably going to be the same thing as they heard about last week, where you either risk your vote or protect your vote, one or the other. And Evie's smart. She comes up with a brilliant idea. She tells Deshaun, she says, look, I'm going to protect my vote. I'm telling you right now, if it's that kind of challenge, I'm going to protect my vote, which means that if you risk your vote, you gain an extra vote. I'm protecting mine, so there's no chance that you're going to lose your vote. You'll gain an extra vote. Just trust me on it. Well, what a great way to give an advantage to someone on another tribe. He'll be forever grateful that she did it. It should help him help her, because he'll watch out for her if he ever gets the opportunity. It's just nice and good to have friends on these other tribes. Evie's got it figured out. I'm really impressed with what she did during this little side trip that she made with Deshaun. She goes beyond that, not just making sure that he gains that extra vote, but she's also spilling the beans to Deshaun about Xander having these powers back at the tribe, that there's a good chance that he could go home with it. And she also tells him about this advantage, and that it's a three-way advantage, that people on the other two tribes have to find the advantage as well. So I fully expect on next week's episode, we're going to see Deshaun going all around the Luvu camp looking for the advantage as well. And then he'll get to throw out some kind of silly phrasing at the challenge also. And then it'll just be one more advantage that has to be found before they all have immunity. So I expect to see it. So Evie's spilling the beans a little bit to the other side to protect her interests a little bit. So they get back. We've got all kinds of happenings taking place at the Yase tribe. Xander and Voce both want to boot Tiffany. They've decided that she can't offer anything, that if they don't get rid of the weak players, they are never going to win another challenge. But the problem is Xander's lost his vote because of this advantage that he found, so he can't vote. So they really need some extra numbers, and so they approach Liana about getting rid of Tiffany, saying, look, we got to get rid of her. Nothing personal. She's just not a good, strong competitor, which makes sense. And Liana says, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. But unfortunately for them, she is intent on protecting the women. She doesn't want to see Tiffany go home, and neither does Evie. So Evie gets back. All the women are now plotting together to get rid of Xander. And remember, 3 votes send someone out the door. You got 3 women right here. So Xander is not looking good at this point. But Tiffany doesn't help her case any. Tiffany is so paranoid. I knew a few people like that in the Big Brother house. Tiffany is so paranoid, she's really creating issues of her own. She is so worried that Xander really may have a hidden idol somewhere. If they all vote to send out Xander, he pulls out an idol out of his pocket. He casts a vote to send Tiffany out the door off the island, and now she goes home. So she just goes on and on. Evie's saying, look, I read the letter. I know exactly what he's doing, everything about his powers. Tiffany doesn't believe it, or at least she's still nervous, and she's saying, we just have to get rid of Voce. We've got to do a surprise vote to get rid of Voce instead of Xander. No one will expect it, and then I know I'll be safe. A lot of paranoia kicking in, which I understand, but unfortunately it's working to her disadvantage at this point in time. So finally, on to the tribal council. Tiffany is talking about how hard it is competing when you're tired, when you're hungry. I wouldn't be vocalizing that. I get it. I'd be the same way, I think, but I wouldn't be telling everyone else that's potentially getting ready to vote me out that, oh, I can't really compete because I'm just so tired and hungry. It just seems like that's putting a bigger target on your back. I'd say, nah, I just had a bad day. I'm going to be better tomorrow. Trust me, guys. But she says how hard it is to compete when you're tired and hungry. And that's that's got people looking at her just a little bit more. But meanwhile, Xander, who also is potentially on the block, he's saying that the beauty of Survivor is that you never know what is happening next. And immediately I saw that and thought, well, here comes the foreshadowing. Xander, you don't have a clue what's going to happen next. I didn't have a clue what was going to happen next, but not what I was expecting. As it turns out, by a vote of 3-1, Tiffany is safe. She's not going home, and neither is Xander. They're both safe. 3-1 vote. David Voce gets sent out the door, sent out off the island. I guess is better Survivor. He gets voted off the island. The tribe has spoken. All the women have voted against him. I didn't see that. I could see Xander going home, but I didn't expect it to be David Voce. I said during the McCast preview that David was going to be the hard player, the train wreck of a player and everything. And I actually appreciated his strategy. I thought he played a much better game than I was ever expecting, but it doesn't matter because he's still voted out in episode 2. He gets sent home. What's that telling me? It's telling me that even though Tiffany was way too paranoid for her own good, she has some sway in this tribe. She managed to convince Evie and Liana to go ahead and send out Voce instead. Now, maybe it's the fact that they knew she was going to vote for Voce no matter what. They didn't want to split their votes and have 2 votes and then have it go to a tie and potentially they lose a woman anyway. So maybe their hand was forced a little bit by Tiffany versus influence. But it doesn't matter because they've sent David out the door. 3 women are still protected on the Yase tribe, and we'll see how that plays going on into future episodes. So there you have it, guys. Another exciting episode. We've now lost 3 castaways. We're so quickly down from 18 to 15 members on a tribe fighting for $1 million or on 3 tribes. And so, again, next week, I expect to see Deshaun over in Luvu looking everywhere for an advantage. We'll see if anyone notices and catches on to what he's up to. And we'll see what kind of silly phrases he has for the immunity challenge. Guys, y'all have a great one. I look forward to episode number 3. I look forward to talking about it with y'all as well. Until then, have a great one. SKD 143. Cheers, my friends.